Hey loves, it's Brit, and in this video I wanted to talk about the natal aspects moon square or opposite to Mercury. So this shows a conflict between the head and the heart primarily. I mean, Venus is another aspect of the heart, but the moon is our emotional self, our unconscious self, our childhood, even representing potentially our mother or even past life energies, our early upbringing, home life energies. So it's a very deep, heartfelt, emotional, feminine part of ourselves. Now, Mercury is androgynous, it's the mind, our logical reasoning, how we think, how we communicate. And so when these are in a conflicting aspect, like the square or the opposition, which are both difficult aspects actually, sometimes the opposition is less difficult than a square, but I feel like in this case they're both quite similar, although as a rule the square is going to be more frustrating tension and the opposition is a more flip-flopping energy where sometimes we're all in our mental body and our thoughts and disconnected from our emotions, and then other times we're totally in our emotions and unable to even think. So it's kind of like, who are you going to get today, right? So yeah, with these aspects, there's definitely a disconnect between the thinking and the way we're feeling. We have a hard time articulating what it is that we actually feel, but we can talk for hours and days on insignificant things. But when it comes to actually articulating meaningful things, emotional experiences, that's where these people can really struggle. Now, sometimes it can even be the opposite, though, where it's like they can talk about very emotional things, they can talk about their feelings, but when it comes to, rational, unbiased thinking, that is impossible. So it can be a bit of both. We want to also look at what planet is stronger. Is it moon or is it Mercury? And how do you tell is if the moon is in a sign that it does really well in, and Mercury is in a sign that it doesn't do well in, then moon is stronger. But if Mercury's in a really strong sign and moon is in fall or something, then obviously Mercury's stronger, and so you're probably as a rule going to get someone who's more of a mercurial energy rather than lunar. So you have to look at like the strength to see who's going to win here, because we've got a conflict, and sometimes the stronger planet can really overpower or overrule the weaker planet. Now, of course, this can be overcome. This is not like an aspect that is actually that hard to overcome. I mean, it can be when it's unconscious, but once you make this conscious, it's actually easy to resolve, although it'll probably take some form of like unconscious healing work. I do think in one of my books it mentioned like people with these aspects can really excel and have an interest in like hypnosis. Like that's a modality that works with the subconscious mind, because that's where a lot of the problem is coming from. It's very deep, it's very old, it's very much originating like in the childhood. So that's a way to, rework this, rewire it. But even just making it conscious, I mean, you'll see like these people just like click, like when I have clients with these aspects and you just like kind of explain it, it just like they're like, whoa, aha moment, and it just like clicks for them that like, oh yeah, that is what's happening with my mind and and with my emotions, right? So even just bringing awareness can be very helpful with this, because the thing with Mercury, it's like how we learn too. So it's like once we learn this, a part of it can kind of click, and then we can work on this and make it better, make it easier. So it's not it can bring a lot of problems, but it's not the worst aspect ever, but it can definitely bring problems, and it can bring nervousness. People with these aspects are usually kind of high strung, because Mercury, such a mental planet, with the moon, even in any aspect, actually, people with Mercury moon aspects, all of the aspects can be quite restless, kind of like ADHD symptoms a little bit, right? Like a little bit hard to focus, right? Now, these ones are going to be the more difficult of that. And, what often happens is that the mind gets so caught up on like nostalgia, or like there's like weird, like unconscious filtering happening where, it's hard for them to be in the moment because they get like sucked up into some sort of energy or emotional state from the past. And then it's like hard for them to be in the present moment. And you can see it. Sometimes they're even kind of like, a spacey energy. Like you can see these people like kind of seeming like they're not there. And so the mind is kind of muddled and confused by the lunar energy, by the emotional energy. There's so much emotional energy running through the mind, right? Now, sometimes people with the opposition, because the opposition is a relational aspect, it's, directly related to relationships, they might end up attracting people who are very confusing into their orbit. And it's hard for them to kind of get a sense of like what's going on with like people in their lives or relationships. I mean, that can be hard for the square too, but specifically the opposition people, it's like you can end up attracting people who actually resemble this description because maybe it's a projection, or it's just kind of like it's a relational dynamic for you too. So that's something to look out for. There can be, difficulties in dealing with people and relating with people. And what this is really coming from is that difficulty in articulating the emotions and the feeling and the true self. When we have an easy aspect to our moon, right, we can show people this vulnerable part of ourselves with ease, right? Because the moon is vulnerable, the moon is emotional, the moon is like our inner child. And like when we have a trine to our moon or even some conjunctions, it's like we feel comfortable in like sharing this deeper part of ourselves. When we have hard aspects to the moon, it's like there's often shame, or it's just difficult to get that energy out there, whether it's shame or not. It's just like we don't know how to show it to people, and sometimes we fear if we do, we'll be ridiculed or something like that. So you could potentially have someone with these aspects having something have happened very young in their life, or very early in their life, where they were ridiculed, or told us that they're stupid, or to just stop talking or something like that. And that could have imprinted them and in this feeling of being misunderstood, and like it can end up being like such a throat chakra block where they end up trying to just silence themselves because they don't think anybody's going to understand anyways, and then that can lead to like further isolation. So they can be very overly sensitive, actually, people with these aspects, because of that. If there was some sort of ridicule early on, these people can be very overly sensitive to criticism, and really, not take anything like that well, even if you're just trying to give them like honest feedback. It's just there's no rationality when it comes to perception of themselves, and they can be very emotional thinkers, kind of like a Mercury in Pisces. They're definitely lacking in ability to have rational thoughts sometimes. Unless Mercury is way stronger, then it's kind of the opposite, like I've said. So it's very interesting aspects to see. They're usually like quite quirky, quite entertaining individuals. They usually have a lot of stories, and sometimes they do talk a lot. It's very funny. My son has this aspect, the square, in a sort of a wide orb, but I would definitely still count it. And he will just talk and talk and talk. And kids, he's like at the why age, right? He's like at the why stage. Why this? Why that? Why that? And then like first thing in the morning, he just wakes up, he just starts yapping away to me and yap, yap, yap. And we have Mercury conjunct Mercury too, and he has Mercury in Gemini, and then he has Moon in Pisces, so they're like a square. So he's definitely extremely chatty, and like the things, like his perceptions, like the things that he'll talk about, it's like stuff that I haven't even thought of. Like you guys are thinking of stuff that is like, I'm not thinking about that. Like it's just the mind goes in weird places, right? And I think that's because of the unconscious element of the moon being tied with Mercury. It's like these people are perceptive, nostalgic, like they might have an interest in like history and like, early family memories or something imprinted, right? But anyways, they're very interesting to talk to. Some people will complain they talk too much, or, sometimes, like I said, the reversal can happen is they can just kind of shut down because they feel like not understood. So, the ultimate remedy for this aspect is we need to somehow coexist the mind and the heart. We need to know that it's okay to be emotional, but we also need to know when it's a time and place for just thinking and a time for feeling, and how to separate yet merge the two in, proper sequence and order, which is not an easy task. But like I said, some sort of meditation or hypnosis, or even inner child work, going back to the early memories and removing any feelings of being ridiculed or unheard or whatever, then that's going to really help a lot. And this will be a more minor square or opposition to deal with in the chart, when we can work with it and bring awareness to it. And then also, because your mind is kind of restless, and then this leads to restless in the emotional body, anything to ground, anything to also kind of focus the mind. You might be like reading a book, like giving the mind something to work with, so you're not just going in circles, giving the mind something to focus on, something to learn about, or something to be passionately obsessed with, can really help ground the mind. And removing all thoughts of being not intelligent, because it's not actually that. It's like your mind works so fast and works in such a different way that you're actually more intelligent than most people, but it's just a different type of intelligence. It's like honoring the way that you think and the way that you perceive, and recognizing that it's perfect, it's okay, and like you're operating at a high level of intelligence, even if it's not the traditional like straight A's kind of thinking, because the way that you think is different. It's emotional, it's perceptive, but it's still very intelligent, very quick, very hilarious. You'll often see like comedians with these aspects, because they're able to kind of poke fun at things that other people haven't thought of, right? Because they see the world differently. They see the world in a very lunar way, right? Because Mercury is also like I said, how we perceive things, right? And the moon is how we feel. So like people with these aspects really have, yeah, just a unique way of looking at things. And so they could be excellent like comedians, or even writers, although it can be hard to just like sit and focus on writing, but they definitely can excel at that as well, even just as much, if not more, than the people with the trine or the sextile. But the difficulty with these aspects is like maybe they can write about stuff they don't care about, but like letting out what they actually feel, and how they actually feel about people, just allowing that to come out, journaling, that would be really helpful to get some of these thoughts out, because they're going to be like kind of like a mush sometimes. So you want to really bring it out into conscious awareness, which is not always easy, but definitely healing and necessary to do. So yeah, the square is going to be, like I said, the more frustrating, although both of these aspects can be frustrating. The opposition will sometimes come out more in relationships. But yeah, the gist of it is pretty much what I've said in this video. So I'd love to know your experience of these aspects. If you have them in your natal chart, how has it been for you? I'd love to know. And thank you so much for your requests, you guys. Keep the requests coming, and we'll talk soon. Bye.